Hello, welcome to another Gundam Ball Portion 2 video. That is the new suit, the Double Zeta Gundam mass production type. And why is this better than the original? But yeah. We have another 600 general, and yeah, it's another one of these kind of generals where it feels like it should be at 650 at times, where it's just loaded with a bunch of stuff, dude. Like holy shit. But then again, they have to have something to fight the S Gundam and other suits at 600, right? So. Man, this is like what our second, third mass production suit that just feels like it's better than the original. Which I mean, there's reasons why, obviously stuff like power creep and all that. But yeah, I do have potentially 3 matches here for you today. The first match is going to be that you're watching right now is actually just straight up my first match playing this suit, and I wanted to post it because well, just playing this match, I was like, oh yeah, I can feel something's really good about this suit, right? And then I learned some combos you can do with this suit, which you'll see in the second, potentially the third match, where you can combo, because you have that range pursuit auxiliary program. You can combo some of your missiles while you're boosting to get absurd damage, especially against raids. You'll see that more in the third match if there's going to be a third one. The second match is going to be me playing this in space at 650 in lunar debris, which, yeah, like I said, this suit, I feel like it can handle itself just fine at 650. To me, that's always a good mark of a suit if you can play it under cost and still do really well with it. So, alright, so let's get right into the stats for this suit. As I mentioned, this is a 600 general. You have 21 ballistic resistance, 25 beam resistance, 20 melee resistance. You have 30 range strength, 25 melee strength, 125 movement speed with 215 boost speed. You have 70 thruster gauge and 69 turning speed. Nice. And for slots, you have 15 close, 18 mid, and 15 long range slots. Now, good news is for the resistances, since they are kind of averaged out, you could kind of pick and choose what you want. You do have a lot of part slots to work with, and honestly, I kind of just picked a build and I stuck with it. I really just, all I did was gave myself 40 beam resistance, I believe 35, almost close to 40 melee resistance. Gave myself 50-something range strength, so I gave myself a good amount of part slots for range strength, and then I gave myself a level 1 and 2 reload parts, because, there's a few weapons on here that, you can reload with, or they're not overheat, right? They're reload. They have ammo. And honestly, yeah, it's been working really well for me. I haven't really strayed far off of that. But I imagine, though, depending on the map, if you're one of those guys that likes to have a build for different kind of situations and maps, well, you can definitely do something like you can focus more on melee, However, the downside is if you're not focusing on that, you will have, you will have, if you're not building your beam, you'll have just straight up just 25 beam resistance, which can get plowed through pretty easily by a lot of suits at 600, especially if you're going to 650. Or if you're specifically going for the range defense, well, you only have 20 melee resistance, so you have to watch out for melee suits, So for me, I just did a general defense build and some range strength. So yeah, and of course you can also do some other stuff like thruster gauge. You want to add that in there if you don't want to do any more melee stuff. Because again, I put reload parts instead of like melee or thruster gauge on my suit to help with some combos. So yeah. Now we're on to the weapons. Starting off, you have the Double Zeta Gundam Jesus Christ. ZZ Gundam mass production type beam rifle, which is 2,400 damage with 4 rounds and 400 range. This is just your basic stunning rifle, and to be honest, look compared to other primary weapons, this one looks kind of wimpy. It looks it kind of gives me the vibes of the power launchers from Heavy Metal Elgheim. The way it kind of has that like skinny barrel look to it, but apparently from what you guys have told me, it's just actually just a single barrel from the double barrel beam rifle that the double Zeta uses, so which is fine. Again, it's a very basic stunning weapon. Use it, you get a stun. It does have 4 shots in it, so you can go back to it whenever you do all the other weapons. Yeah, works fine. I do have range strength, so I'll be getting some decent damage out of it. And if you just shoot somebody on the ground, well, yeah, you can get close to your original damage depending on what their beam resistance is. Alright, now we're on to the... I forgot to... Hey, I got 400 range as well, so that's pretty good range, too. Alright, now we're on to the melee weapon, which is the ZZ Gundam mass production type Beam Saber, which is 2,300 damage. And, yeah, the neutral swing is just a straight-up poke. It's not like an instant poke, though, so you have to be careful because you could get countered with it if you're not careful. And the downswing, I believe, is the Zero Shiki's downswing. But the second half of the downswing, for whatever reason, the devs made it to where you speed up super fast when you use it. So it's just kind of funky looking. You'll see, I believe right there, I just did it. So it looks kind of weird, right? But it does do some pretty good damage. And of course, if you're getting that downswing, you can combo with your range weapons to get some really, really nasty damage. Yeah, really gross. But we'll get there when we get there. So yeah. The range weapon, the melee weapon, worked just fine. And now we're on to the secondary weapons. You have the 50mm Vulcan gun, which is 50 damage with 40 rounds and 175 range. Now, it sounds like it has really low damage. I said 50. But you actually shoot 2 shots at a time whenever you're firing this. So you'll end up getting, I believe, throughout these matches, getting over 100 at least. But it still has a pretty, because of the way it fires, it does have a slower firing rate. It does have some form of stun accumulation. It's very typical of a lot of Vulcans at this cost, where typically if you're using it by itself, you'll get a stun towards nearly depleting all your ammo. So it's not reliable by itself. But if you're mixing it up with other weapons, like if your instant stuns aren't ready, then yeah, you can surely you can use this, right? And of course you can use it for basic Vulcan stuff too, like finishing off low health enemies or taking out pilots. I don't really go them too often though, because usually some of my other weapons that are way more useful in certain situations, yeah, they'll do just fine for me. But yeah, they're there when you need them. Next weapon here is the OWP Beam Cannon ×2, which is 1,200 damage. You fire two rounds, so that's technically more than that if you get both shots off. With 80% heat rate and 400 range. Same range as the beam rifle, and yes, it's an instant stun. You have to stand still to fire this. And yeah, it's just kind of like if you're comparing it to it's a mass production double Zeta, right? So it's like the double Zeta's shoulder cannons, where you stand still, you fire it, and you'll fire 2 shots, and yeah, you'll get a stun if it hits. This could lead for really good stun locks where you can use this into your beam rifle or beam rifle into this and so forth, right? Or, you can do some really, really fucky reads where you can stun somebody, wait for them to do a dodge roll, stun them again, go for melee, all that good stuff, right? And again, actually, let me double check the damage real fast. It actually... yeah, you should be getting some good chunking damage if you hit somebody on the ground with it. So there's been a few moments where if I can't use my missiles or something else happens, I can always just pop somebody real fast with the beam rifle if they're on the ground. If they got toppled, beam rifle into the shoulder cannons, which is pretty nice. So yeah, that's just there for another stun. You have to be careful though, because again, you do have to stand still to use that. So be careful when you're aiming at somebody. Next weapon here is the Missile Pod ×2, which is 250 damage with 16 rounds and 350 range. Now, if you're using these by themselves, if you're not setting up anything with them, they're kind of where they don't have really good stun accumulation. And the damage is fine, right? But you can boost while using these, which is actually really great for approaching. But you do have to be really careful because, again, the stun accumulation is really low. It's kind of just there if you want to throw out damage. The real thing comes in whenever you want to use this for your combos, which here in a second I'll go over that when we look at what we did here for the first match. Mission completed. Let's see how we did in our first ever match in this suit. And yeah, we just topped the board, so... 5,000 damage, 720 assist score, oh my bad, 5,000 individual score, and 87, almost 90k. And yeah, first place, 7-3, almost 30k pursuit assist. That was the first match, and I just knew right then and there, oh yeah, this suit's gonna be great. So, all right, now we're on to the space match here, and yeah, for the missiles, what really brings out the missiles as a really great weapon is using them in your downswing combos. And what I mean by that is, since this thing has Pursuit Auxiliary Program ranged auxiliary program, you will do 15% more damage on your range weapons whenever somebody's in the topple state. This means when they're currently going down and they're on the ground. It's not just when they're on the ground, when they're going down, right? When they're being toppled. So you could follow up with these missiles while they're getting downswung, and then you can just come back in for more melee. And since this thing already shoots, let's see, each missile does 250 damage. You're shooting 2 missiles at a time. Yeah, I've gotten over 500 damage per, I guess you can say per shot technically, since I'm shooting 2 at a time. They'll be taking all that damage. You'll be technically shooting 8 rounds, technically, if you're shooting 2 at a time. that can net a lot of damage, especially against raids too. But yeah, it's just it can be a really gross combo tool, and that's really where this weapon comes out. And of course, it does have a pretty fast reload as well, but you know, there's times where I can't do my downswing combo, so I'll just use these as just a way just to poke at people. It still does okay damage overall. If you're looking for a stun accumulation, this isn't it, but it still has other uses, right? So, and again, the combo is kind of the bread and butter with this weapon, and almost for the suit, really. But yeah, now we're on to the other sub-weapon here, or the next sub-weapon, which is the OWP Micro Missile ×2, which is 150 damage, 6 rounds and 300 range. Yeah, you fire 1 missile at a time, and it has very low damage, but you can actually steer this with your reticle, where yeah, you'll turn whatever you're turning, and if you hit 4 of the 6 shots, you will get a stun, so it has pretty nice stun accumulation. It's not the best, though, because you can't boost while using these like you could with the other missiles, and obviously, you know, you do have to, it fires 1 missile at a time, so you're not firing a whole bunch to get a stun. So you have to be really careful how you approach somebody if you're going to use this for a stun. But if you're good enough, you got good enough aim, right, you can use this for an initial stun, and then you could potentially have, I believe, 4 stuns in a row if we combine your next weapon here. But yeah, you can use this to initiate, and then yeah. Now, unfortunately, I don't use it too much, though, because again, like I said, a little bit awkward to try throwing in there, and especially since I have a way better stun accumulation, which is the next weapon, which is the Scattering Mega Particle Cannon, which is 250 damage, which it says 250 damage, but it's shooting a multitude of beams, right? It's a scattering beam cannon, 90% heat rate and 200 range, very close range, but is basically the same kind of chest scattering beam that the Zusa and the Sazabi has. I believe it's more so with the Sazabi where it shoots, I believe it actually shoots a 2 burst of its mega scattering beams, right? It's very quick, though, so I don't believe you can cancel out of it. You're not fast enough to do that, but even so, I think you do need those 2 bursts to get a stun. But yeah, you can use these while boosting, and of course you can use this to set up for melee situations where you can just boost up, stun, get a melee off, or maybe even if you're going to use you can use that to initiate first, and then you can use your other range weapons to get a stun. If you're worrying about maybe somebody coming up behind you, like a teammate that wants to get their melee in, right? So, very useful, very great stun accumulation. It's the only one that really kind of works for me. Like I said, the backpack missiles, they don't have really great stun accumulation. They're more so for your combo damage, and the micro missiles can be, again, like I said, pretty awkward to use, or at least for me. Finally, your last weapon here is the Simple High Mega Cannon, which is 700 damage, 100% heat rate, and 450 range. Now, it says 700 damage, but of course you have ticks of damage. You know, it does over time when somebody's caught in the beam. And yeah, what makes this really interesting is, you know, comparing this to the double Zeta. Unlike the double Zeta, which has to sit still to charge up its head cannon, this suit actually, you can move and boost while using it, and I guess you can technically even dodge roll as well, which makes it really useful for moving with your team to get a heavy stagger set up. Now, the downside is that you don't do nearly as much damage as other suits that have these kind of mega cannons, right? In fact, it seems like more so you want to use it just to get a heavy stagger situation. Now, if you do get a full-on shot, it's great. Which I should mention that you can't actually turn your head, or you can't turn the beam. You can't turn the Jirobi like a few other mega particle cannons that can be used in this game. So you can't, if you shoot, you can't turn it. So you have to make sure that shot counts. But again, even if you just tap them once, it is a heavy stagger, so that still can be useful if your teammates are nearby. And of course, I believe you can even be fast enough to, after you get done firing the mega particle cannon, you can follow up with at least a shot from your beam rifle or your shoulder cannons. So, yeah, pretty nice. It does pretty low damage compared to other Jirobis. I guess that's to balance out the fact that you're able to move and boost and do dodge rolls with this, you know? So, I wish it charged a little bit faster, but again, I can see why Also, that guy just got fucked by the support fire, so I got front row view of that. Yeah, there we go. And now we're on to the skills. And you have Shock is Over level 3, you have a dodge roll, you have balancers, you have M-back level 2, you have blast stabilizers, so mobile suit explosions do not heavy stagger you. You have maneuver armor, so you can tank instant stuns while you're boosting. You have damage control, so it takes more stun accumulation to stun you, which pairs really well with maneuver armor. You have melee combo controller, which is 2 melee swings. You have force injectors level 2, so you have reduced thruster consumption when you're boosting back and forth. You have flight control level 2, so you can boost in the air, or and do another jump in the air if you really want to. And you have I believe this is a new skill. I know there's a melee version of this, which was on, let's see, I think the Sturm Gallus and the Silver Haze Kai. There might be another one. But yeah, you have Pursuit Ranged Program, or Pursuit Range Auxiliary Program. And this is just a range version of that melee version of the skill, where you'll do 15% more damage when you shoot somebody with a range attack while they're on the ground, while they're in the topple state, I should say. The topple state, as I mentioned earlier, is when they are currently falling and they're on the ground. So you don't have to wait until they're on the ground to do more damage. You can just go ahead, like if you're doing the downswing, you can just go ahead and start shooting them while they're currently on the ground or falling, right? And like I said, this pairs really, really well with a lot of your weapons. If you're not close enough to do your double missiles, you do a downswing, you boost back. Since you can boost and use the missiles at the same time, use your missiles, and then go into your melee. If you can't do that, then if your teammate is doing their combo, you can probably slide in some shots from your other range weapons. And it's not as immediately noticeable as the melee pursuit program, but the damage it does, it certainly builds up. It's crazy. Really, really great tool. And overall, there's a lot of good skills on this suit. Which, before we get to the pros and cons, this is a timeout. We're at the end of the match. Let's see how we did. Mission completed. Let's see how this did at 650 pace in rating, I believe. And almost 5,000 individual score. I'm going to be praising the Mark II Cubile and our support. And hey, first place, 6-1, almost 50k pursuit assist, over 100k damage as well. It works just fine, so it works pretty damn good. So yeah, now we're on to the pros and cons, where starting off with the cons, there's hardly any cons with this suit. I would say, first of all, if you're, like I mentioned earlier with the stats for this suit, if you're not going to be building defensive, like if you're going to be skipping your beam resistance, you'll have 25 beam resistance, which can get you melted at this cost, especially with some of the supports that are around, right? And even the generals, like this suit, but and if you don't build for melee, you have 20 melee resistance, so you have to watch out for melee suits. So, like I said, for me, I just built for beam, got 40 beam resistance, got like almost 40 melee resistance, at least like 35, and then I still got enough range strength to still do a lot of damage. As you saw from those from those matches, I'm still doing good chunks of damage whenever I could hit, and put some range reloads on that, or reload parts, melee reloads, reload parts on that, so my missiles can come out faster, or my beam rifle can get out of reload faster. So the downside here is that if you're not going to be building in those kind of areas, you'll definitely feel the pain from the area you didn't build for, right? So be careful of that. Be careful how you build the suit. Which, somebody just texted me. Nice. I say texted me. That's somebody sent me a message on YouTube. The other downside to the suit is that the stun accumulation for some of his weapons are kind of meh. The missile pod, the backpack missiles, those are pretty bad stun accumulation wise. You have to hit majority of them to even get close to getting a stun, which you don't get a stun at all if you fire all your missiles. The micro missiles, you have to get a majority of the hits, right? You have to get 4 out of the 6. Which, you know, if you're not really good at aiming reticle weaponry, right, or, you know, you can't track that well, yeah, you're not going to be getting a stun with that. So you have to rely on the scattering mega particle cannon in your chest to get a stun accumulation that way, to break, you know, maneuver arm and all that good stuff, which, you know, it still does that fine, you know. So even though I said the stun accumulation is meh, it's really good on that scattering particle, right? Which, honestly, that's all I can think of for like really big immediate downsides that kind of fucked me over in a match, which that's hardly anything, because one of those downsides I already accounted for. The other downside I don't really bother with, because I'll use those for just typical damage and combos. And if I want stun accumulation, I can use my scattering particle cannon to get close to somebody. So yeah, not a whole lot of downsides here. Now for upsides, you have really great stun potential with the primary weapon stunning, the beam cannon stunning. And if you get the scattering mega particle cannon, that will be a stun as well, if you can hit most of your shots with that. And you can use that while boosting. Another upside for this is the skills. You have every skill that you would want in this game, besides maybe some other stuff like power accelerator and all that good stuff. You have a dodge roll, you have maneuver armor, you have damage control, you have an answer to all the ways people can stun you initially. You have melee combo controllers, you have 2 melee swings, so you can catch somebody with your poke and go straight for a downswing. The Pursuit Range program is super disgusting when it comes to doing combos. If you're fighting a raid, the raid will take a huge chunk of health, or you will take a huge chunk of health from the raid, right? So really, really great weapons and skills. You know, really good. I cannot emphasize that it is a pretty gross unit in the right hands. It makes me wonder if they're going to go back to the original Double Zeta and see if they're gonna do some stuff for that, where maybe they should make it to where the Double Zeta can move and use its mega particle cannon. You know, yeah, if this thing just feels really, really good to play. And yeah, I totally recommend this for anybody that wants a good general for 600, or players who don't have a general for 600. Just it is just worth it. Again, I picked it up and I just immediately could tell. And there's a bunch of other players online, or I say online, on YouTube that you guys can watch that are way better than me, that just wreck house with this thing. It is definitely going to be a suit you'll be seeing commonly. It is going to be a common suit. I can just tell, and I've been seeing a lot of people got off the half off as well. So it's gonna be around for a good bit. Which, yeah, the S Gundam had it too good for too long, so now they're gonna pump this motherfucker out, and just, oh man, yeah. I feel bad for people who aren't as good as with raids, where they're just gonna get bodied by this thing. In fact, I've been in a couple of matches playing this where you can have all your generals can be this suit. It is very, very versatile, which I guess, you know, technically I can put that in the pros, where this suit is very versatile. You can play really aggressive with this, or you could play kind of passive, you know, play like a supporting general, right? But yeah, that'll be in this video. If you guys enjoyed this video, leave a like, subscribe if you want. I'd really appreciate it. And, you know, type up in the comment section how you feel about the, I was going to call it the ZZ or the ZZ-MP. Do you like it? Do you hate it? Yeah, I really like this suit. It really appeals to me in the way I like to play things. I like playing a little bit more range, right? And I like to play a little bit more opportunistic whenever it comes to getting into melee, so I can use my my scattering particle cannon to get into to do anti-raid stuff, or maybe just push a line, right? Push the front line, get some combos in. And speaking of the combos, yeah, you got a really disgusting combo with the missiles. Overall, this suit is just, honestly, pretty much a 10 out of 10. There's very, very few flaws on this suit. And again, I really recommend, if you guys want to get a good suit, yeah, this is the suit to get for 600. And I heard some people saying this might be like a bait suit. Even if the suit's a bait suit, it's really damn good bait. It's really, really damn good. But yeah, that'll be it, and I will see you guys later. Bye.